Inside the Illini Big Ten College Football is brought to you by your local Anheuser-Busch distributors, O'Brien Auto Park of Urbana, Hickory River Smokehouse in Urbana, and WAND.
Fighting Illini.
Yes, they're the 2-0 Fighting Illini, music to the ears of Illinois fans after that 45-17 win over Cincinnati. Hi, I'm Matt Lovelace here at Hickory River Smokehouse in Urbana for Inside the Illini Big Ten Football. Here in week 3 of the football season, we're going to get you ready for the Chicago homecoming against Washington at Soldier Field. We're also going to talk a lot about that win over Cincinnati, a surprise to many Illini fans. Maybe not that it was a victory, but how big of a victory it was. And of course, we turn to our panel for all the opinions. And guys, Matt Daniels, News Gazette, Steve Kelly, Sports Talk 1400. Guys, first impressions as that game was unfolding, what were you thinking?
I'm still shocked that it happened. I did not foresee that at all.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people in the press box on Saturday were just almost as surprised probably as people in Memorial Stadium. So it was definitely a shocking day to say the least. And to see Illinois go 2-0 heading into Washington was completely unexpected.
Yeah, Steve?
I was thinking that Cincinnati was going to wake up somewhere along the way because they were very sluggish, obviously, coming out. And I think maybe they underestimated what they were going to see against the Illini, and Illinois took advantage and jumped out to that 21-0 lead and had the halftime lead. And Cincinnati then, when they did start to wake up, a couple of calls went against them and they never could get back in. And then Illinois finished it strong with 17 fourth-quarter points.
Yeah, but scored on their last 4 possessions. I saw that stat as well. Do you think, I mean, you said you were waiting for the other shoe to drop a little bit there. Do you think perceptions maybe changed, the fact that they put really 60 minutes of good football together?
I think so. I mean, that was a big point of emphasis with Tim Beckman, throughout all of August and preseason training camp is just finishing games and coming out stronger in the second half. I mean, you saw the week before against Southern Illinois, their inability to kind of put the Salukis away, and they definitely, put their foot on Cincinnati's throat and stepped on it and kept up the pressure on Saturday.
No turnovers, no sacks, just a handful of penalties. Not necessarily the perfect game, but it was getting close. And Bill Cubitt even talked after the game and this week about how it could get better, the offense could get better. He said, I could call better plays. So maybe that's coming up later today.
Well, random side note to that, Athlon Sports, probably not a publication many of us read a lot, but they named him the Coordinator of the Week, the National Coordinator of the Week. Didn't know that award existed, but well-deserved.
I actually mentioned that to Cubitt earlier this week, and he said, oh, that's cool, I didn't know about that. But Bill Cubitt has definitely got Illinois zeroed in on offense, and he's got the fans excited, and his play calling is just, it's a big reason why Illinois is 2-0, I think.
So a lot of people, depending on expectations for this game against Washington, probably expect to win over Miami next in a couple of weeks here. That's a 3-1 non-conference season. Do we see 3 conference wins? I mean, is it too early to talk about bowl games? I mean,
it's never too early to talk about bowl games, especially coming off a big win against Cincinnati. I mean, if you beat Washington today, and if you beat Miami of Ohio, which is expected in 2 weeks coming off the bye, you're sitting at either 3-1 or 4-0. At the very worst, they're going to be 2-2 going into Big Ten play, which a lot of people expect at the beginning of the year.
There's a lot of ifs there. I'm going to go with it's too early to start talking about bowl games. Yes. We could get into that later, maybe.
I agree. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that later. But and also, I should mention, 107th in passing were the Illini last year. Right now in the country, they're 10th. That's worth noting since everybody's playing these cupcake schedules early in the season. Well, I think it is fair to say opinions have changed a little bit, and we'll talk about that Cincinnati game that changed those opinions next on Inside the Illini Big Ten Football. Welcome back to Inside the Illini Big Ten Football. Now, going back a couple weeks, the Illini needed a goal line stand in the fourth quarter to hold off Southern Illinois, and we knew they would need a much better performance against Cincinnati, and boy, did they get it.
The Bearcats were a 2-touchdown favorite. They had beaten Purdue a week earlier by 5 touchdowns. The Stars were aligning for Cincinnati to take 2 straight from the Big Ten. But right away, Illinois seemed eager to throw those Stars all out of whack. Scoreless 9 minutes in, Nathan Shieldhouse to Josh Ferguson, as they did in week 1, hooking up for a long touchdown pass. And Illinois was up 7-0. It seemed like no two plays were alike all day. Second quarter, the Illini putting last year's leading receiver in the running game. Ryan Langford broke across the field for a 29-yard touchdown run.
We knew that we were going to be able to get the ball to the outside on reverses, the jet sweep type things.
Next possession, Shieldhouse got his second passing touchdown, hitting Evan Wilson on the move. Shieldhouse's fourth TD pass on the young season, matching his 2012 total less than halfway through week 2.
Nathan right now is kind of phenomenal, John.
In the second half, the Illini led 21-10. Cincinnati, though, was marching for a comeback. The turning point of the game right here. A 4th and goal at the 1. Bearcat QB Munchie Lego keeping it. He barrels toward the end zone. It was called a touchdown, so the scoreboard read 21-16, PAT pending. But a review of the play showed Lego fumbled into the end zone. That's a turnover on downs. And instead of a 4-point game, the Illini made it 18. A 12-play, 99-yard drive ending in Steve Hull's first career touchdown reception and put the Illini in cruise control.
I'm proud of my guys because we stood up, we made the play, and we gave our offense the ball, and those guys have been great.
The Illini closed the door. Another big passing play. This one, an incredible catch by transfer Martez Barr, his first in an Illinois uniform.
This is very fun, very, very fun, man. Like everybody says, I had a long journey to get back here, and now that I'm here, I'm just enjoying every moment of it.
They finished off the eyebrow-raising rout by a final score of 45-17. Coach Tim Beckman claiming afterward it didn't feel different than the Week 1 win, but players couldn't hide it, even singing Illini loyalty noticeably louder.
It's our second win, so each win, as we progress, it's going to feel a little bit better.
With Mike Thomas being a former AD at Cincinnati, this one was for Mike. Thanks.
Well, guys, for once, a whole set of highlights that were a lot of fun to watch and watch again. We mentioned scoring on their final 4 possessions, but another big stat there, third down conversions, those 3rd and 7 pluses Beckman was talking about, converted on a 3rd and 19 when they needed it. A pretty good performance.
That'll definitely win you some football games, like Illinois showed on Saturday. I mean, that was a big point of emphasis as the reasons why Illinois was able to win convincingly against Cincinnati, and that'll be a key in today's game against Washington. Is if Illinois gets in those 3rd and 6s, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7, even 3rd and long situations, if they're able to capitalize on those, might be a good day for Illinois then.
Hey, what was different, Steve?
We were talking about Nathan Shieldhouse a little bit and the start that he's gotten and the confidence that Bill Cubitt has in him and the apparent and obvious confidence Shieldhouse has in the offense right now. That's a big key. I like the way he's spreading the ball around. 12 guys have caught passes. Half a dozen of them have caught 5 or more, and the leaders only caught 9, so there's a lot of good balance there. I'd like to see a little more out of the running game. I think they'll need that later today.
Martez Barr, the guy leading at least in terms of catches that receiving core, had a great game. I mean, he was a guy we spotlighted just a couple of weeks ago in our opener this season. What you expected this season, or is he exceeding expectations?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he came in as from a prolific offense at Iowa Western and didn't catch as many passes last year, but he's definitely shown that he's got the potential. I mean, that acrobatic touchdown catch against Cincinnati was one to remember. What really impressed me about his game against Cincinnati was his, I believe it was a 24-yard run, kind of on a jet sweep type play. The running game didn't necessarily get going from Donovan Young and Josh Ferguson, but Martez Barr and Ryan Langford also helped out against Cincinnati with their running efforts.
Yeah, at one point I think I remember Langford was leading the rushing attack and Ferguson was leading the receiving attack at one point in the game. So Cubitt, obviously, Bill Cubitt, we talked about in the last segment, is shaking things up and he's doing it pretty well.
He is, and you know we haven't seen everything that he's got in that bag of tricks, and he pulls out something different each week, and it'll be fun to see what that might be tonight. I'd like to see a little more, as we mentioned, out of Donovan Young. They had 210 yards as a team rushing last week, which is quite a bit better than the 49, 50 yards they had net in that first game, but they're going to need more, I think.
Cubitt talked about waking up at night and getting an idea and writing it down. He's that type of guy. He's always thinking about football. So that's exciting for fans, and it's exciting to see what it's done. A turning point of the game, I think, and it was just a couple score game, but when Munchie Lego went down with his injury, you guys probably saw the replays up in the press box. I didn't get to see it because I was on field level, but I can tell you that the sideline for Cincinnati just went dead. and there was no coming back.
And then the press box was pretty eerily quiet too after that happened. They showed the replays a couple minutes after his injuries, and I looked at it once or twice and then just turned my head away because I couldn't bear to watch it. It was just a horrific injury, and you never want to see that happen to any player.
I was working on the radio side doing the network radio broadcast, and really, as it worked out for me, I had to fill some during then because there was a downtime where they didn't take a timeout right away, so we were filling, and so I didn't watch the replay, and once was enough.
Yeah, definitely. And before we go, let's turn it back to the positive. You mentioned quickly Nate Shieldhouse. I was just looking at his 2-game numbers: 75% of his passes, 728 yards, 6 touchdowns, interception. Extrapolated over a season, those are Heisman numbers. But obviously, we're not thinking that quite yet with Nate. But what have you seen from him?
His health is the big factor, I think. Last year he hurts his ankle in the first game. This year he's fully healthy so far, and I think you're really seeing what he can do and how he can kind of blossom under Bill Cubitt's offense.
Something else yet to be seen is Nathan Shieldhouse, the runner. You know, he's still got that in him, and that's going to come out at some point. It's good they don't need that right now.
Only a couple of run calls we saw there. Well, it was an 11-1 week for the Big Ten. That made them 21-3 overall. Not bad for the leaders and legends. We'll take a look at the leaders next.
The Inside the Illini Weekly MVP highlights the top playmaker for the Illinois football team from the previous week. And we'll talk plenty more about him later in the show, but it's worth a first look. Senior linebacker Jonathan Brown, the top pro prospect on this Illinois defense, surged into the Big Ten lead for tackles. He now has a total of 23 after a big day that included a tackle for loss and half a sack against Cincinnati. He's the Inside the Illini Weekly MVP.
Hey, welcome back to the show, talking Big Ten Leaders Division. Big blowout wins were the norm in the division. That is, if you weren't a team located in the state of Indiana. Our reporter Eric Harold has the highlights from week 2.
Leaders Division, number 3, Ohio State taking on San Diego State. Braxton Miller on 4th and 1 converts, but he would pay the price. Sprained a ligament on that play. He will be day to day after that, but they did not need him today. Jordan Hall takes a handoff up the middle, punches it in from 4 yards out. Ohio State leads. Later, running away with it. Guyton drops back, looks down the field, left side. Philly Brown with the big touchdown puts Ohio State up 42-0, and they would win 42-7. Number 23, Wisconsin taking on Tennessee Tech. First quarter, Joel Stave drops back, hits Derek Strauss. Wide open, strolls into the end zone. Wisconsin rolling early. Later in the first, Melvin Gordon takes it outside, shakes a tackle, stiff arm, runs up the sideline. He's going to take it 65 yards deep into Tennessee Tech territory. 3 Badgers finish with over 100 yards rushing in this game, and Wisconsin defeats the Golden Eagles 48-0. And going around the leaders division, Penn State knocks off Eastern Michigan 45-7 thanks to the arm of Christian Hackenberg, throwing for 311 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Indiana falls to the midshipmen 41-35. Quarterback Nate Sudfeld had a huge day in the air, 363 yards, but it was not enough. Hoosiers lose. Purdue leads the entire way against Indiana State, but they had to survive a late rally. They took the lead early thanks to a kickoff return by Akeem Hunt, 99 yards for the touchdown. And now, back to Matt and the Inside the Illini crew.
Well, guys, the burning question, of course, is will Wisconsin ever give up a point this season?
Will Wisconsin ever play anyone is
That's
another
true.
question, too. They played Massachusetts in the season opener in Tennessee Tech last week, and I think it's 93-0 is the combined two
right.
totals. And, yeah, they'll get a test tonight out in Arizona at Arizona State. But, yeah, Gary Anderson's definitely started his tenure at Wisconsin rolling, and it seems the rushing game is leading the Badgers once again.
Same old, same old. They got 1, 2, and 3 running backs that all seem to go over 100 yards, and they've got that big offensive line they always have. We saw firsthand last year what could happen out in Tempe, Arizona, against Arizona State, and we'll talk more about it later on. I'm debating on who to pick in that ball game, but I'd like to see Wisconsin win it, but it's tough out there.
You got about 20 minutes to figure it out.
Okay, thanks.
Averaging 390 yards per game these first 2 games against, of course, the opponents that they've played. Ohio State, a 42-7 win over San Diego State. The question in this game, figured Ohio State would win. Can Braxton Miller play an entire football game?
That's true. I mean, his backup, Kenny Guiton, I think that's how you pronounce his name. I'm a newspaper guy, so forgive me.
You know how to spell it.
Exactly. He he definitely shone in Braxton Miller's absence. But they'll get a test tonight out at California, and Urban Meyer, 14-game winning streak. So you can't really critique him so far during his tenure with the Buckeyes.
That game could get a little crazy out there with the Cal offense under Sonny Dykes with a true freshman playing quarterback. I don't think they've got enough bullets in the pistol to beat Ohio State, but they've got them on their home field, so you never know. But I think Ohio State will come out of that okay.
Miller, since being named starter, has left 6 games early due to an injury, so he's the incredible breakable quarterback.
Doesn't help his Heisman campaign.
No, I don't think so at all. Penn State, 45-7 win over Eastern Michigan. Christian Hackenberg, a little bit of a slow start there, but ended up with some respectable numbers, and Penn State got the running game going as well.
Yeah, Christian Hackenberg's definitely showing he can run Bill O'Brien's offense in that pro-style mold. Coming in as a true freshman and playing at a program like Penn State's never easy, but he's certainly made it look easy so far. They'll get a tougher test today against Central Florida, I think, but Christian Hackenberg's definitely showing he's the real deal, and that Bill O'Brien kind of made the right decision in naming him the starting quarterback.
I like Bill O'Brien as a coach. I thought he did a tremendous job last season. I haven't really had a chance to see much of Penn State yet this season, but as Matt said, it might get a little tougher on them, but they're at home, so they'll be 3-0 after this week.
Now, I mentioned the Indiana schools, a little bit closer scores here. Purdue runs back the opening kick for a touchdown and gets outscored the rest of the way by Indiana State. It's a victory for the Boilermakers, which they really needed, but a level of concern in West Lafayette.
Well, and I think the big question, if pertaining to Illinois too, is just how bad Purdue might be. Is Cincinnati, with the win last week that Illinois had, and Cincinnati just rolled Purdue. But yeah, Darrell Hazel's definitely got to show some improvement in year one. Maybe it wasn't such a good decision to fire Danny Hope after all. The program wasn't great by any means, but it definitely wasn't as sluggish as it seems Purdue is right now.
That was the same Indiana State team that gave up 73 to Indiana in their opener, so I don't know what that really tells you about Purdue, but it's not good.
No.
The only downside to the Illinois-Purdue game is that it's over there. That might give them a bit of at least a feeling of advantage.
And speaking of Indiana, falling to Navy, Navy's first Big Ten road win since 1979. Indiana just couldn't stop the run. Their defense issues are exactly what we thought they would.
Well, a lot of teams won't be able to stop Navy's running attack. Their triple option is just prolific at times, and in Indiana the big question is the defense, and we'll see how Kevin Wilson adjusts to that the rest of the year.
That was one of many games I missed last week.
I got it
right.
Didn't
miss much.
I got it right.
Next up, we'll talk about the Legends Division, and it was in the spotlight. At least 1/6 of it was in the national spotlight in prime time. We'll take a look back at the Michigan-Notre Dame game and others on Inside the Illini Big Ten Football.
The Inside the Illini Play of the Week is sponsored by your local Anheuser-Busch distributor, Ronchetti Distributing, and quite the welcome to Champaign. New receiver Martez Barr did not disappoint. The junior college transfer caught a team-leading 5 passes for 72 yards, and none bigger than this one. A leaping 26-yard touchdown grab. Barr now leads the Illini in receptions in this young season.
Welcome back to Hickory River Smokehouse in Urbana for Inside the Illini Big Ten Football. It was a clean sweep for the Legends Division, including a big game in primetime. We go back to Eric Harold for the highlights.
Thanks, Matt. Legends Division, biggest matchup of the weekend. Number 14 Notre Dame at number 17 Michigan. Devin Gardner drops back, looks down the middle of the field, finds Jimmy Gallen. 3 guys are going to stop him. No, they're not. He breaks loose, runs up the field and into the end zone. Michigan takes the lead early. Second quarter, Wolverines still leading. Devin Gardner rolls out, hits Jimmy Gallen for another TD. He had 4 touchdown passes on the day in Michigan. Knocks off Notre Dame 41-30. Number 19 Northwestern led by Kane Coulter taking on Syracuse. First quarter, Coulter drops back, hits Trayvon Green. He takes it the rest of the way into the end zone for the touchdown. Northwestern up 7-zip. Second quarter, Wildcats lead by 10. Simeon at quarterback throws to Dan Vitale. Touchdown Northwestern. They blew out Syracuse 48-17. Number 22 Nebraska taking on Southern Miss. First quarter, scoreless. Southern Miss has the ball. Alan Bridgeford throws left, picked off by Stanley Jean-Baptiste. Takes it into the end zone for the pick 6. Nebraska up early. Later in the first, Nebraska up 7-3. Taylor Martinez drops back, throws it for Quincy Enunwa. Touchdown Cornhuskers, and they win over Southern Miss 56-13. Elsewhere in the Legends division, Roderick Williams Jr. and Philip Nelson provide a 1-2 punch on the ground for the Golden Gophers as they defeat New Mexico State 44-21. Iowa, anchored by the ground attack, led by Mark Wiseman, 180 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground, they win 28-14 over Missouri State. And Michigan State, led by a big defensive day from defensive end Shalik Calhoun, 2 defensive touchdowns, leads the Spartans to a 21-6 win over South Florida. And now we return to Matt and the Inside the Illini crew.
Guys, let's kick it off with a big primetime game, the game day game, Michigan, Notre Dame, the last time in the Big House. I don't know how many times we heard that on Saturday night, but it's the last time in the Big House. Michigan gets a win. What do you think?
Devin Gardner just showed, he's the real deal, and he's making people in Ann Arbor not forget necessarily about Denard Robinson, but letting them know that there's a new quarterback in town. Aside from his impressive performance, he was easy to spot on the field against Notre Dame wearing number 98 in honor of Tom Harmon, which I thought was pretty cool. Yeah. And Michigan, showed that they're a team to contend with in the Legends division for sure.
That was pretty cool, but it still didn't look right. No. A guy number 98 playing quarterback, but he was pretty impressive, no doubt. Another record crowd up there. That's a fun place to watch a game. We talked about it last week. I can't speak for everybody, but I don't like either one of those teams. But I was going with the Big Ten on that.
I don't know why, but the play I remember is Gardner getting tackled in the end zone and throwing that interception late in the game. A little bit of a boneheaded play, but 4 touchdowns passing, 1 running.
It kind of makes up for it.
He made up for it a little bit, definitely. Nebraska, a 56-13 win over Southern Miss. Nebraska's offense worked well. They also had 4 turnovers. We keep talking about that Cornhusker defense, but it looked okay.
It's Southern Miss. I don't know if you can get much validation from that.
Okay. Fair enough.
The real test will be today when they play UCLA. And game I think the Bruins are going to win. We can get to that later, though. But, Nebraska's their offense is rolling as it should be with Taylor Martinez running things. And their defense, looked better, I guess you could say, against Southern Miss.
Back before your time, young man, Southern Miss beat Illinois a time or two. So we have seen them step up and play. A different coaching staff, a different era perhaps. But I think, again, Nebraska's defense will get a test. And I'm still concerned about that, but we'll begin to find out about them today.
The team I'm growing more and more impressed with by the week is Northwestern. Big win 3-touchdown win over Syracuse. Seems like they have good balance as well.
Pat Fitzgerald's got that thing rolling up in Evanston, and the Wildcats sure don't want to see him leave anytime soon. The program's on its high, probably as high as it's been since Gary Barnett was there in the mid-'90s. I know Randy Walker had some successful teams there, but at Northwestern, I'd be interested to see, what it's going to be like when Big Ten play starts and kind of how they stack up and just see where they kind of fall in the race there in the Legends.
We're talking about Bill Cubitt and Nathan Shieldhouse and the Illinois offense having fun. The whole Northwestern program looks like they're having fun with the way they play. Yeah. They've won 5 straight games, second longest winning streak in the Big Ten, and they definitely have it rolling.
Michigan State with a win over Southern Florida. Not a whole lot of yardage from either team there. And apparently Michigan State just doesn't want Andrew Maxwell to pass. They aren't throwing it very often.
Yeah, the big question mark surrounding the Spartans is just their offense. I mean, the defense is always going to be there, it seems, but, poor offensive efforts against South Florida and Western Michigan to open the season, I don't think have people in East Lansing feeling too good about where the Spartans are this year.
Well, the problem they have there is that Ann Arbor's not far away, and that's the big game in the state of Michigan. They've fought that for years. They're doing that again. I haven't seen Michigan State enough yet to know how good they might be. We'll find out.
All right, and we'll just mention quickly, and our apologies to the bottom part of the Legends division, but Minnesota, a big win, defense coming up big once again for them. Second game in a row they've had 2 defensive or special teams touchdowns.
Doing your research.
I know. I do a lot of reading. And then Iowa, of course, they get Iowa State. We were talking about that beforehand. Not sure what to expect from that game. Well, coming up next, we'll take our next look at Illini and the Pros, a week 1 in the books. Exciting all the way down to the end. Whitney Merciless was a guy who impacted the end of week 1 there. Plus, our Inside the Illini Spotlight takes a look at Jonathan Brown next. Welcome back to Inside the Illini Big Ten football. Time for our Inside the Illini Spotlight. And a lot of times we'll take a look at a guy who's a little bit under the radar, who might be surprising us. This guy certainly doesn't qualify as that. Senior linebacker Jonathan Brown was pretty disruptive and has been through 2 games this season. Might have upped his NFL draft stock quite a bit as long as he can stay healthy. Our Noah Newman takes a look at Jonathan Brown in our Inside the Illini Spotlight.
The numbers speak for themselves. A Big Ten leading 23 tackles through 2 games. Jonathan Brown is healthy and playing at a high level.
He's playing fast. He's playing at the level that, we always knew he could. It was just a matter of him being healthy, and now that he is, he's playing just where he should be playing.
Producing on the field has never been a problem for the senior from Memphis, Tennessee. He's been an impact player since day one, a 2-time All-Big Ten selection, and last year he was a semifinalist for the Butkus Award, despite missing the final 3 games with a shoulder injury. But this year, Brown's role has expanded from playmaker to leader.
Developing the young guys is probably the biggest thing. Probably be my legacy around here.
He's a lot more vocal, leading those guys. A lot of young guys around him, not just at the linebacker spot, but even in the secondary. So he's really taking command of our defense.
I had the fortune of working with a lot of great players. Martez Wilson, Ian Thomas, Whitney Merciless, Tavon Wilson, Trulon Henry. I've had the fortune of having a lot of great guys around me to kind of just show me how it's supposed to be done and bring pride back to this program.
Brown hopes to follow in the footsteps of his predecessors and make an impact that goes beyond this season.
The common trend is they help me develop. So the easiest thing for me to do is help these young players develop so you can see success in the future, not just in next season.
Well, guys, the guy we have begun to call JB. That's how most of us know him. I almost said that in the intro there. Guy we're getting real familiar with over here in the last few years.
And a lot of opposing teams are becoming familiar with Jonathan Brown.
Correct.
Cincinnati is probably having nightmares about how often he was in the backfield last Saturday. And Washington will certainly, have its eyes out for where number 45 is on the field. He had 14 tackles against Cincinnati. He seems to be fully healthy right now, and that's the big key for Jonathan. And it seems Tim Bakes is just kind of letting him go and letting him execute his system and make plays on the field.
He was knocking on the door of a career high. He had 17 tackles in a ball game as a career high, so he's had several games right around 13, 14, 15, 16 tackles, and he's really, really good. And he's not the tallest guy when you watch him play out there, but he sure gets to where he needs to be.
I feel like every time I want to say a sentence, I want to start it with, as long as he can stay healthy.
Yeah.
Let's just wipe that from our vocabulary for now. His NFL draft stock, good decision staying for another year and playing this year?
Oh, I think so, especially after, he didn't stay healthy last year with the shoulder and the leg issues. One thing that a lot of his teammates on defense have said is just his improved vocal leadership this year. Mm-hmm. Taylor Barton mentioned it after the Cincinnati game last week that, you know where Jonathan Brown is, and his leadership on the field is really helping out kind of a young Illinois defense at times.
He's kind of a soft-spoken guy off the field, but it's good to hear that he is taking on that leadership role.
I think he's looking at the future of this linebacking core, too. I just feel like this year he really does care about the legacy he leaves and about the Monheims and Svatinas and what they can do. And you mentioned that leadership role, a guy who's matured a lot over the last couple of years.
You sound like Tim Beckman there mentioning the Monheims and the Svatinas, but yeah, he's definitely...
he loves those guys.
He does. He loves those Ohio guys. Jonathan Brown's leaving an impact that, will be carried on with Mason Monheim and Mike Svatina, who are, making significant contributions as well.
And everybody knows about Illinois' linebacking legacy, so it's in good hands, at least at the moment.
That's right. All right, well, 24 former Illini started the last week on NFL rosters. Many of them made an impact. Our Elise Menaker gives us a look back at week 1 for our newest installment of Illini in the Pros.
Thanks, Matt. Illini in the Pros is brought to you by O'Brien Auto Park of Urbana. 24 former Illini on NFL rosters. I'll cover some of the highlights, and I have to start out this week with a bang, and I mean literally.
We'll take you to Saturday's matchup between the New York Jets and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. An exciting finish thanks to a last-minute penalty that gave the Jets the 18-17 win. But earlier in the game, Jeff Cumberland cuts across the middle on a pass from Geno Smith, and Deshaun Goldson of the Bucs nails him. Another look. Goldson ended up being fined for the high, hard hit. Cumberland left the game, but not for long. Also in this game, on the opposite sideline, Akeem Spence for the Bucs. He ended the game with 2 tackles and a fumble recovery. And speaking of thrilling finishes, Monday night, the San Diego Chargers took on the Houston Texans. That was decided by a Texans field goal in the final 5 seconds, the only lead the Texans would have the entire game. Whitney Merciless tallied 5 tackles and a sack. Also in this game, on the losing end though, Chargers defensive end Corey Liuget with 2 tackles. A noteworthy performance from Saints running back Pierre Thomas. He was the team's leading rusher with 43 yards on 9 carries in their 23-17 win over the Falcons. 3 former Illini joined new head coach Andy Reid in Kansas City, guard John Asamoah, wide receiver A.J. Jenkins, and offensive tackle Jeff Allen. Only Allen saw the field week 1, though, both Asamoah and Jenkins out due to injury. But Allen helping the offense rack up 291 yards and the win over the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's where you also saw Allen ball for the Jags, getting on the stat sheet with 4 tackles.
Helping the Patriots to their first win of the season, safety Tavon Wilson, who's fighting for more playing time, Michael Buchanan, who made his NFL debut, and Michael Ho'omanawanui, who wins the award for coolest name and hardest to pronounce for someone new to the program. That'll do it for this week's edition of Illini in the Pros. I'm Elise Menaker for Inside the Illini.
Welcome back to the show. Time to take a look at the Eastern Illinois Panthers. Another week, another climb up the FCS rankings, getting top 10 votes in one of the polls this week. A big in-state matchup. We'll test that once again. We go inside the Panthers with Eastern Illinois University.
The Eastern Illinois Panthers in Carbondale for their second game of the 2013 season as EIU and SIU renewed their rivalry. 1 week after the Panthers knocked off FBS San Diego State, the Panthers with the first of 3 games in a row against Illinois schools. 3 Jimmy Garoppolo touchdown passes put EIU up 21-17 at halftime. The Salukis dominated the third quarter, taking a 2-point lead into the fourth, 23-21. The Panthers regained the lead 4 minutes into the final quarter on a Cameron Barra 40-yard field goal, and a Garoppolo to Adam Drake 31-yard touchdown connection put the Panthers up 30-23. SIU tied the game with just over 2 minutes remaining in the fourth, and EIU with one final crack in regulation, but Cameron Barra had his field goal attempt blocked. Bonus football in Carbondale, and both SIU and EIU scored touchdowns in the first overtime to force a second OT. In the second overtime, SIU failed to score on their possession, missing a 37-yard field goal. EIU would not let there be a third overtime period, as Cameron Barra connected from 36 yards, giving EIU their first win in Carbondale in 12 years.
Here we go. Good snap, placed down, kicks up, kick is good! Panthers win!
It's tough to win here, but we came out here, we battled. I didn't have my best game. Should have been over in regulation, but unfortunately that got blocked. And we just got to keep pounding. I think that's what we did so well is we just kept plugging away. Defense, they got scored on, come back with a big stop. Give me a chance to win the game.
It's a physical team. It was a physical game. Thank God because of our conditioning and our strength program that's changed this team, that we were able to stay with them as long as we did. It's a good football team. We'll probably see them in the playoffs.
EIU takes their 2-0 record to their home opener at O'Brien Field tonight against Illinois State. This will be the 102nd all-time meeting between the Redbirds and Panthers.
They've had 16 days to prepare for us. I mean, they played early. We got an early game moved to a Thursday, had a bye week. So they've had more time than any other opponent that we're going to play this year. And I'm really concerned about that because Brock's a heck of a coach, and I know he knows exactly what he's doing. So we're going to have our hands full, and we're going to have to just go out there and see what kind of adjustments new stuff he's given us, and make the right game adjustments and try to get one more point more than them.
Kickoff is 6 p.m. tonight from Charleston. The game can be seen locally on WEIU. Reporting for the Eastern Illinois Panthers for Inside the Illini, I'm Brad Kupiec for WEIU.
And like they said, a tough one tonight. Number 9 Eastern Illinois against number 18 Illinois State. That's at 6 p.m. Next up, our Pick'ems, brought to you by Hickory River Smokehouse in Urbana, how we did last week, and what we think about this week in the big games. That's next. Welcome back to Inside the Illini Big Ten football. Each week we do our picks of some of the bigger games across the country in college football. And that's brought to you by Hickory River Smokehouse in Urbana. Let's take a look at the standings real quick as the News-Gazette has represented well. 6-0 so far. I did mention, though, that Lauren made a pick of Miami over Florida out of spite.
Lauren never does things like that.
He never does things like that. Never. Because Steve and I picked Florida, he picked Miami. He got it right. Steve's at 4-2.
And you notice Lauren is not on the show this week because
that's true. Exactly. We booted him.
He's on probation.
Double secret probation.
And I bring up the rear at 3-3. Very proud. out, and let's just get right to our picks this week. Our first game we're looking at is UCLA at Nebraska. It's number 16 at number 23. Thoughts on this one?
I'm not going to get as emotional as Jim Mora Jr. did this week, defending his Bruins, but I'm going to go with the Bruins. Even Nebraska's got the offense. I think it's going to be a shootout, but I don't think Nebraska can stop UCLA.
I'm going to go with the home field advantage on that and go with the Cornhuskers. They're pretty tough there. Their defense needs to step up, but I will disagree with my young friend.
I think there's a balance there between the emotional highs of wanting to win one for your teammate and also the emotional lows of having what just happened. I think home field advantage wins there, so I'm going Nebraska as well. Next game, Wisconsin at Arizona State. An intriguing game. Wisconsin, the ranked team. Arizona State just outside the rankings.
I think I've picked Arizona State in the paper this week, but I think I'm going to go with Wisconsin right now.
Mine's changed.
I'll win either way, I believe. Wisconsin, I just think their running attack will be too much for Arizona State to stop.
Is that legal?
I don't think so.
It's how we get the perfect record every week.
We're going to have
There's
to get
no money changing hands.
We're going to have to get a ruling on that. I'm going to go with the Big Ten and the Badgers. I think they'll be able to run the ball at Arizona State, but I go back to what I said earlier. It's awful tough out there on a Saturday night for a Big Ten team going that direction.
Yes, it is. I'll pick Wisconsin as well, and that would be an upset according to the odds there. Finally, real quick, number 1 Alabama, number 6 Texas A&M, Johnny Manziel against the Tide.
Texas A&M, big story will be how Johnny Manziel reacts after the game and what his behavior's like, and if he gets in any trouble Saturday night at all.
I'm going with Alabama.
I feel like Bama wants to shut Manziel up, so I'm going to pick Bama there as well. Well, here's the part where we get you, the fan, involved. Ask us a question. If we pick your question, we'll answer it on the air. You win a $25 gift card to this restaurant, Hickory River Smokehouse, here in Urbana. The question we got this week was from Michael, and he set it up for us. Obviously, a tremendous improvement in the defense from week 1 to week 2, despite the step up in competition. What factor or factors such as game planning, individual player improvement, etc., do you attribute to this? What was it?
I asked Tim Banks almost that exact question, Michael, last week after Cincinnati, and he just said there wasn't really any change from the week before against SIU. Guys just stepped up and made plays and executed the system. I think Jonathan Brown and Mason Monheim really shined in the linebacking core, and I think Illinois was able to dial in some more kind of delayed blitzes and to get after Cincinnati's quarterback, which definitely helped out last week.
I think getting more guys on the field certainly helped, and that's going to be a factor later tonight when they go against Washington in that quick offense. But they're able to move more guys through the rotation, both on the line and in the secondary as well. I think that contributed to the successes also.
I think one interesting thing, and I would say the game plan was it, because you can have a couple of 4- and 5-star recruits. Say you have a couple of 5-star receivers. Ask USC what their highly rated receiver did last week against my Washington State Cougars. But if you have a bunch of 3-star guys who are very capable of doing it, if you have the right coordinator and the right plan, you can use those guys to hurt as much as anybody in any recruiting class you got. So I think that was definitely a big factor. Now, we want to talk about Washington, don't we? We've been thinking about it for a week.
Do you want to talk about Washington?
I guess.
Okay.
I'm required to. No, you know what? This is going to be fun. A bunch of names I read all the time because I read the Seattle publications. But we'll have a few more hours to mull it over because the game doesn't start until 5 o'clock. First Chicago game for Illinois since the Wrigley game in 2010. We'll discuss the Illinois-Washington matchup next. Welcome back to Hickory River Smokehouse here in Urbana on WAND for Inside the Illini Big Ten Football. The outlook for this game was a whole lot different about a week ago, but off a bye week, a very well-rested Washington Husky team will meet Illinois at Soldier Field. Let's take a look at the matchup.
A hurry-up, no-huddle offense, once a gimmick, now becoming the norm in Seattle. The Washington Huskies will bring their fast-paced offense to Chicago.
It's kind of what the Pac-12 does, a lot of, trying to get in a lot of plays, a lot like Indiana does in this conference.
What this team does, they really stretch the edges. They like to get the ball on the perimeter, whether it be bubbles, tunnel screens, or hitches. They like to really stretch the defense sideline to sideline.
That offense debuted to rave reviews in Week 1, a big win over a top 20 Boise State team. The result booted the Broncos from the top 25, where the Huskies replaced them. Confidence in Seattle is as high as it's been in 10 years.
Thought the bye week was productive for us. Thought we were able to accomplish some of the things that we felt like we needed to focus on.
And why shouldn't it be? This game will be senior quarterback Keith Price's 29th start. The passing game and running game are well balanced. Junior running back Bishop Sankey put 161 yards on Boise State. And the defense is light years ahead of where it was before D coordinator Justin Wilcox took over.
Everybody in, let's go!
It's another big challenge, and we're going to have to do some things that are a little bit different.
Enjoying their bye week, all Washington eyes were on the Illini live as Illinois dismantled Cincinnati. As confident as the Huskies are, Illinois has their attention.
Got a lot of speed on that team, and that's going to be one of the biggest challenges for us, is how to contain the speed and contain the quarterback.
Well, here you are, week 3. Washington Huskies coming off that bye week, but a big win over Boise State. Washington was favored by a couple of points, and they win by 32. So, impressed by that game?
Just a little.
Yeah.
Washington definitely showed they're a player on the national scene with that convincing win against a Boise State team that has just racked up victory after victory in the last decade or so. Right. What impressed me more so about that game, not just the offensive numbers they put up, but just defensively, holding Boise State to only 6 points and really disrupting their passing game was a big sticking point in my mind.
Thoughts when you watched that game, Steve?
I was very impressed with the defense that Washington put up. And you talk about the bye week, having the bye week in the second week. I mean, you don't really need a break yet, but you have to do it. So I think Steve Sarkisian thought it might be a tough week for him. Turned out it wasn't. But what it might have done that could work against Illinois' favor is the fact that they were able to watch the game live if they wanted to, and many did. So they got maybe a little earlier look at Illinois and say, hey, these guys are pounding Cincinnati. Now, they would have gotten to that point at some point during the week, but I think they got there earlier.
Right, I think that helps them mentally, knowing that you got to prepare maybe a little bit harder, and they did that this week. And you mentioned the defense. First time Boise State failed to score a touchdown since 1997. 16 years since they failed to score a touchdown in a game. So that was a big improvement over a Washington team that gave up 67 points in an Alamo Bowl just a couple of years ago. Some people arguing the stars aligned for that game, though. UW was coming home for the first time in a year, brand new shiny stadium, national TV game, and Boise State team that had beat them in each team's previous game. So there were a lot of factors there. Maybe the spread was a little bit of a mirage, the margin of victory there.
Yeah, no, I think Washington, like you said, all the stars did align. I mean, playing in a renovated stadium like that, I'm sure gives them maybe a 10-point advantage, something like that, just at home, and all the adrenaline and emotion that comes with it. And you add in the talent that they have with Keith Price at quarterback and Bishop Sankey at running back. I mean, it's a dynamic 1-2 threat, and they certainly showed that against Boise State.
One thing to watch, though, Washington recently has not been a very good team away from home. This is not a true road game in the sense it's at Soldier Field, kind of a neutral site. But when they've left Seattle, they haven't been as effective. We'll see if that's a factor. What could help them is the fact that this is not an 11 o'clock game. It's a 5 o'clock game. If they were coming this way to play that early, it certainly would be an advantage for Illinois. So maybe that all balances out.
It's one of those Pac-12 neutral site games. I grew up in Pac-12 country. You travel 2,000 miles to play a team who's 80 miles from home. Neutral site. UW, in putting in a new offense, 52 plays they ran in the first half. I think they ran something like 33 in the second half when they were eating up clock. But it seemed like they adapted pretty well to the hurry-up.
Yeah, and the pace is definitely a concern and it should be for Illinois fans this week. Everyone can just think back to last year's game at Memorial Stadium against Louisiana Tech and just the hurry-up offense that team ran. Washington is kind of similar. Some of the players that played in that game, kind of expect kind of a similar pace as well on later tonight when they line up at Soldier Field. So that's definitely a key to watch for tonight's game.
The last time Illinois played at Soldier Field, what was the name of that team that beat them up there?
Washington
State, yeah. 10-9 game. Hopefully there'll be a good crowd and they can pull Illinois to a victory there. And because obviously Illinois wants a bigger presence in the state of Chicago, as I call it.
The state of Chicago. Yeah, full disclosure, I went to Washington State. Washington's been my rival, so I've had a good 30 years of sports hatred for this Washington team. So I don't know if cheering in the press box is against the rules. But the big thing I would be concerned about if I was Illinois is the return of their tight end, Austin Safarian-Jenkins. Guy was out, a DUI charge, suspended for a game. That was a decision Coach Sarkisian waited a long time to make for week 1, but he's back, and he is big.
He is big. I think he's actually bigger than one of Washington's starting offensive linemen. He's about 6'6", 276, and you know, I wrote about it this week. You know, 10, 15 years ago, that is an offensive lineman. But he's definitely holds all the records for tight ends in terms of receiving yards, touchdowns, things like that at Washington. Illinois will have to be aware of him at all times tonight.
And it's not going to be 95 degrees tonight at game time.
That's right.
It's going to feel like football weather.
Yeah, it'll feel a whole lot nicer. Even without Austin Safarian-Jenkins, 592 total yards of offense for Washington. So they have options if he's not there, but that's a big body that Illinois will have to get used to. Well, I'll tell you what, if you want to go to the game, the show ends about 11 o'clock now. You can still pack up the car, drive up, get up there with plenty of time to tailgate, and enjoy a football game at Soldier Field. We will all be there for kickoff at 5 o'clock, Illinois versus Washington. Thanks for watching the show this week. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks when Illinois plays Miami, Ohio.
Thank you for watching Inside the Illini, Big Ten College Football, brought to you by your local Anheuser-Busch distributors, O'Brien Auto Park of Urbana, Hickory River Smokehouse in Urbana, and WAND.